Good morning, everyone. This is, I think that this is a nice way to start our Saturday morning. I'm so happy to see each and every one of you. As Nick said, I'm a newcomer here, but not exactly a newcomer, since I started my career in Washington, D.C. in the early 90s. And believe me, I find Washington an equally wonderful place to be. I find my Greek American friends friendlier than ever. I find always Nick Larigakis dealing with, unfortunately, the same issues, and it's one of the things that we've got to discuss. And what to say, I also find Greece a different country, which means a country which is more self-confident, a country which plays a certain role, and a country which is, a very strong and reliable ally of the United States. And this is something that has become very tangible, and I hope that we will have the opportunity to analyze this further during our discussion. So I wanted to thank Nick Larigakis for organizing this for so many years. It has a certain importance, and the fact that we see each other, we renew we do not renew, but we exchange views, and I hope that we make certain progress. And I also wanted to thank my wonderful friend, the Ambassador of Cyprus, for being here, and we cooperate very closely, and I usually get, I have to profit from his wisdom. Thank you very much.
So, good morning, everybody. First of all, let me also thank Nick for organizing this breakfast briefing this morning with all of you. I didn't expect this many people. It's quite an event, as it seems. So, he kicked off the 50th anniversary of IHI last night with a wonderful concert that we all enjoyed. For us, as Cypriots, the anniversary of IHI is particularly it resonates even more, I would say, than any other organization in its own way, because as Nick very clearly said, Gene Rosidis quit his day job to form this organization in the summer of '74 as a reaction to the illegal Turkish invasion of Cyprus. So the illegal invasion of Cyprus and IHI go hand in hand over these last 50 years, and we're always appreciative of the great work that the organization does in many, many different ways. And we have always worked closely with IHI and its leadership. We will continue to do that, and with all of you. We rely on your wisdom, on your knowledge, on your connections, on everything that you do, and your involvement in the public affairs of this country is crucial for the causes of Hellenism, the cause of Cyprus, the overarching objective of having the United States as close as possible to our countries, which is very much needed. Let me very quickly say that, just like Katerina mentioned, Cyprus is going through a sort of, I would call it a golden age in its relations with the United States. A Cypriot ambassador in this town, even 7-8 years ago, would have one subject only to raise when he was seeing people, and that was the Cyprus question. That remains at the very top of our priority list. It will always be that way until we manage to rid the country from that foreign occupation which has been blight since '74. But in the meantime, we move on. We don't stand still, we don't stand pat. We seek to develop the relationship with the United States in a manner which would be beneficial for the whole region. And as Nick said, we'll go into this discussion. I won't say anything now. We have proven ourselves time and time again And that is now very much recognized by US policymakers, and that opens avenues for all kinds of great cooperation. With Katerina here, I want to tell you that don't take it as a granted thing that the ambassador of Greece and the ambassador of Cyprus necessarily will be working in tandem, but we do. And we have a little bit of a tradition going on where we get together once a week, regardless of whatever else is going on, for a coffee and sort of tell each other what's going on. And it's extremely, extremely beneficial for us. And we want to extend that kind of exchange and input with all of you, because we stand to gain from everything that you do and everything that you know. So that's it for now. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you both. Well, let's get started. Madam Ambassador, I will begin with you, if I may. Certainly over the course of many years, but more recently, the actions from Turkey have been so provocative in terms of the rhetoric by Mr. Erdogan. The overflights specifically in 2022 were 11,000 in nature. But nonetheless, right now Greece and Turkey, after signing the December 7th declaration, the Athens Declaration, which I happened to be in Athens at the time, seems to have put the two countries in a somewhat rapprochement. I know something happened recently again regarding the maritime issues which you can delve into. The question is the Greek government satisfied with Turkey's adherence to this declaration?
Well, first of all, the relationship with Turkey is a complicated relationship. So we do not expect black and white answers, you know. It's not yes or no. It is, we all know that it has been very complicated. But Greece is always trying to go through dialogue, you know, because this is our basic belief as a civilized country. So, since the earthquake in Turkey, we made an honest effort to build bridges. And we managed to build bridges. We have some calmer waters. I believe that these calmer waters are due to, one, the firm position of Greece in recent crises, like, for instance, the immigration crisis in Evros, or our stance, you know, in the Eastern Mediterranean crisis. But also it's a combination of pressure put by the United States of America during the last years. And one understands that it's a firm position that pushes a little bit Ankara's attitudes towards these calmer waters that we say. But the fact that we are having calmer waters does not mean that there is any change in the political attitude of Turkey or their decisions. Everything, all their policies, the aggressive, revisionist, and sometimes, you know, this comes also for an authoritarian type of regime. This attitude has not changed. The illegal claims, we know that they are on the table. What we are trying to do, and you know that you mentioned already that we had even very recent proof of the unchanged policy of Turkey, since even very recently they reacted even to the creation in the middle of the Aegean, you know, of maritime parks. This proves that they have not changed their attitude, but still say, we have managed to have these calmer waters. We do not have, for 1 year now, overflights, which was something absolutely unacceptable. And we have, let's say, less hatred speech on behalf of the Turkish leadership. What we can do through this, we can prepare little by little the way, the path, but this has to be lasting and consistent, this slight change of attitude by Ankara. It has to be lasting and consistent. Our Prime Minister is gonna go to Turkey next month to continue this dialogue. But this dialogue, we all know, we are not naive. It has certain limits, and the limits are our sovereign rights. Any discussion on sovereign rights is out of the question. We will try to keep, and we all realize that calmer waters in the Aegean is a path that might help us to have less tension in the Aegean, and this might also be helpful to any discussions and any efforts that also Cyprus could do in the future for a just and fair solution in their major problem of foreign occupation, Turkish occupation on the island for over 50 years, just 50 years now. So you cannot have any hope of any progress if you do not have a calmer situation. We will try as much as possible to maintain it. And if you ask me, the Athens Declaration, yes, it's a declaration which we know that it will have hiccups on the road, but it is a basis where we can maintain at least a dialogue with Turkey. And I think that we can only profit from that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very important development that we have had in the region since the October 7th attack by Hamas against Israel, and then the reaction of Israel and the extent to which that created a humanitarian situation in the Gaza for the civilians of Gaza. And let me just preface this by saying that Cyprus, just like Greece, just like the rest of the European Union, just like the United States, has a very firm position as regards the right of Israel to self-defend, as regards the need to eliminate from the region organizations such as Hamas. It should be fairly evident to everybody that the Eastern Mediterranean will never be stable, will never be secure, as long as we have, your Hamases, your ISISes, all these organizations which have as the one and only objective is to fight against Western values and Western interests. So the plan that we developed to open a humanitarian maritime corridor to Gaza is not new. Those of you who will remember the war, or not the war, but the withdrawal of Israel from Gaza in 2006, you will also know that that withdrawal came with the added maritime blockade of Gaza. So since 2006, no ship of any kind could actually dock in Gaza. And that also created a situation even then, even without war. And we had a sort of like first idea to develop this plan to, in cooperation with Israel, to find a way to lift this blockade and allow for ships to go to Gaza for peaceful purposes. Since 2010, 2011, events were such that it don't allow for the full fruition of that idea, but we brought it back again, looking at what was happening in Gaza in November or October, where we presented the idea And there was interest, including here in Washington, and we determined from the very beginning that the involvement of the United States in this maritime corridor was instrumental if this was going to really happen. So we had meetings, there was interest, but everybody at the time, maybe November, December, was still hopeful that the war would not drag on, that the war would maybe be over by Christmas, the situation would be stabilized, there wouldn't be a need for something as ambitious as a humanitarian maritime corridor. But then we saw that the war was not going to end. As a matter of fact, we still have the war. There are still efforts to get a ceasefire, but in the meantime, with the cooperation of the United States, which again was crucial, our American interlocutors came back to us in January and said, let's have a look at that idea again. People from very high levels of government went to Cyprus, sat down with our people, looked at everything, looked at the logistical arrangements, looked at the security requirements, and we had in the meantime Jose Andres and the World Central Kitchen being active in the area, and we've joined forces. So the humanitarian corridor opened, when was the State of the Union? March 7th?
Yes.
Yeah, so right around the State of the Union address, it was decided that the United States would actually go on record with this idea. It did. The president included it in a manner in his speech, the State of the Union speech, and then we had ships. We had a couple of ships already going using the humanitarian corridor from Larnaca to Gaza, docking there in a very sort of like temporary way and delivering aid. As most of you know, we had an unfortunate tragedy last week or 2 weeks ago, where due to an error, according to Israeli authorities, a convoy of the World Central Kitchen was attacked. We had 7 dead, which is a real tragedy. And that sort of created a little bit of a standstill in how we were getting aid in, because humanitarian organizations, if they don't have security, they will not go in. So this was put on hold, but only for a few days. The humanitarian corridor is moving forward. The United States is fully committed to this idea. Regional partners are committed to this idea, including the UAE. We created a fund called the Amalthea Fund on the island to contribute with money for getting humanitarian aid into Gaza. The Royal Navy of the UK is sending a ship in the region to also do sorties. But the biggest development is that the US Navy is going to be imminently arriving in the area with very specific equipment to construct off the coast of Gaza a temporary structure, a jetty, a pier, you can call it whatever you want. There's going to be a causeway, a two-way causeway attached, so that trucks can unload from the ships and take aid straight into Gaza. The expectation of this structure will be ready in the next 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. So the plan is moving ahead full speed. We don't do it to sort of like say to everybody, look at us, how important we are. We do it because that's our neighborhood. That's where we live. We need to find ways to stabilize the situation, and every single one of the regional actors needs to do their part. We're not a huge country. We're not even a medium-sized country. We're a small country, but we're a country that is situated, as you very well know, in a very crucial crossroads between 3 continents. We're a member of the European Union, of course, and a European country, but our neighborhood is the Middle East. That's a home. And we have excellent relations with everybody in the area, except one country which doesn't want to have relations with us and wants to basically say you don't exist. As you all know, we're not the Republic of Cyprus to Turkey, we're the Greek civil administration. So to the Turks, 195 countries are wrong and they are right. So that's all I'm going to say about that for the time being. Of course, it's indicative of the overall political situation that Turkey reacted negatively to this initiative that we have and tried to find ways to somehow work against it. It realized very quickly that this is not going to go anywhere. So we're moving forward. We're doing that. We will continue to do it. It will probably be needed even in the day after we have the end of hostilities. Gaza is going to need to be reconstructed. You're going to need to have huge amounts of material going in. And as you all know, trucks versus ships, it's a very clear equation, what's quicker and what's more effective.
So why strategic? And what is a strategic dialogue? A strategic dialogue is relating to the identification of the long-term goals and the means of achieving the goals of a cooperation between the United States of America and Greece. So it was the fifth time that we had this dialogue. Once is in Greece, and next time is in the United States of America. So this time it happened to be in Washington, D.C. Just to give you an idea, in this dialogue, they participate very many high-ranking officials and ministers from both sides. It's around 40 people from each side. And we have major areas that we cover. Why is that? Because, as I said before, Greece and the United States are at their highest level of cooperation. We share same values and same interests. So we've got to work on these interests, common interests, and we've got to monitor the cooperation and assess and review the progress. That's what we do every time when we are having this dialogue from both sides. The areas that we cover are defense and security, energy, law enforcement, climate change, and people-to-people cooperation. This time, during the fifth dialogue, if you ask me for this specific time, I mean, you never see huge steps. It's just the assessment of an itinerary. And this was very positive this time. I could just give you a couple of highlights. The one was the sales of F-35 aircraft to Greece, and again, why this is important, or why this was assessed as important, is because a dynamic foreign policy is actually reflected to the security consolidation of Greece, and especially in reinforcing its deterrent capabilities. So the outcome of this is the F-35 aircraft sales, which of course adds to the security of our country, and not only of our country. We are allies with the United States of America, and by reinforcing a reliable and credible ally, you are reinforcing also the entire alliance. That was one of the highlights of the strategic dialogue. A second highlight, I would say that it was the developments on the energy sector. As Evangelos also pointed out, we are in the middle of two major crises in our area. The one is Ukraine, the other one is the Middle East. Two major crises sometimes might crush you as a country, but some other times might accelerate the possibilities that as a country you can offer. And in this very moment of our history, we are in a position in Greece to give solutions to major problems. And energy is an area where we were in a position to offer solutions, because we had an over-dependence, as you all know, on gas on Russia, and Greece, just after the invasion of Russia to Ukraine, we offered this solution to open a vertical corridor from south to north in Europe and north to south, opening up ports and facilities in Greece. Especially a special role was played by the port of Alexandroupolis, and not only the port of Alexandroupolis, but all other ports and airports in Greece. And there was an extensive use of all these facilities to transport equipment, personnel, and helping thus the east flank of NATO. But apart of that, this corridor could be used also as an energy supporter and provider for the entire Europe, because through the port of Alexandroupolis we could carry LNG to Europe, and apart from this, we realized that we could also through interconnections and pipelines provide Europe with the necessary gas outside of Russia. So a movement that up until before the crisis in Ukraine was right on the horizontal corridor from east to west and west to east in Europe, which was blocked actually by Russia after the crisis. Now we could give a different solution through this vertical corridor for energy and relieve Europe from the over-dependency on Russia, and at the same time give a new impetus for energy transition towards a greener energy. How is that? Through interconnectors again, electricity interconnectors this time, connecting Israel, Cyprus, Greece, or even a very important country in the Mediterranean, Egypt, with Greece. And this, if you can picture it, it gives a new future for an entire area, open up the seas from north, all Europe now can have a way out through the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean, to the Atlantic Ocean, and this gives a very important solution and new ways for the future. And just my last highlight of the security dialogue would be the progress that we are having when it has to do with people-to-people cooperation. Education is something that's very important for all of you, for our entire Greek-American community. And it's very good now that we have universities in Athens, not only in Athens, also all over Greece, which are attractive to American students. And I can just tell you that I'm very happy to see that for education reasons, Greece is the 8th destination for American students, as a preference, the preferred destination for American students. And this is something very, very important. When I started my career here, there was this, I was covering Congress at the time, and there was this legislative issues, and there was this thing, 7 to 10 ratio. I'm sure that each and every one of us, you remember. It's not a good thing to remember that we had to defend, when Turkey was getting 10, let's say, defense articles, grants. We were getting 7 loans. And there was this ratio, and we were trying, to defend this 7 to 10, not to disturb it, to our detriment. And secondly, if possible, at a certain moment, not to have it there, to have our country seen as the ally, the partner we are. And here I am, towards the end of my career, and this is very unfortunate, of course, if I see a different Greece, a different relationship between Greece and the United States of America, which is a top-level relationship, which is very true, and still to see that sometimes and at important points we are being seen, in tandem with Turkey. And sometimes to be seen as the collateral damage, if you want. That's something that has to change. And that's something that I'm sure that the United States of America have realized. They have realized that we have passed this point, and I hope that this very difficult situation where this F-35 sales, very legitimate and very, as I told you, it's something that actually reflects the country that it is now, and reflects the needs for a very important ally. The fact that it was combined or bound to totally other issues that had nothing to do with the real thing. I believe that although it was somehow unfortunate, in the end, little by little, everyone will realize that Greece should be seen on its own merits, and that it is not only to Greece's interest to be seen on its own merits, it's to everyone's interest. It's to the United States of America interest to be able to make big steps without having, foreign weight on our shoulders. So with this, I believe that you will also, it's a thing, it's one of the issues that you can always convey to your fellow Americans, that Greece stands on its own feet and has its own itinerary, and it has its own weight in the region.
What kind of leverage do international actors have on a country like Turkey in making it change its behavior, so that this abnormality that's been happening for 50 years, because, it bothers me a lot, I have to tell you, it bothers me a lot when people avoid using the word occupation. It bothers me a lot, especially in the aftermath of the illegal, brutal invasion of Russia against Ukraine, in light of the illegal annexation of Crimea, in light of everything that Russia is doing against a third sovereign country, to be saying all those things that we should be saying, and we should be on the right side of history always. It's a matter of principle in a rules-based international order that we do not accept military action against a third country. We do not accept annexations. We do not accept that the territorial integrity of any member of the United Nations can be violated by another country, no matter what the excuse. No matter what the excuse. I feel very strongly about this because, to me, I shouldn't have to explain this thing to anyone. I shouldn't have to sit in any room, anywhere in this country or in Europe, and say the obvious. What are 40? Let's say it's not 40,000. Let's say 30,000, it's 20,000, doesn't matter. You have foreign troops on the soil of my country. Are they there on holiday? Are they there? What are they there for? This is as basic as it gets. The need over the years to talk about this, like it's something that people do not get, is really, really, I'm sorry, it's tragic. And we need to remind people of what's going on. So we've had this for 50 years. Numerous efforts took place. Some of these efforts failed, and the Greek civil community, if you like, has been blamed, for instance, for the Annan Plan or for what happened a few years ago. And I always tell people when they blame us as well, or equally blame both sides, or one side 60, the other side 40, it doesn't matter. I say to people when they doubt the desire of people in Cyprus to reunite, to get rid of the occupying nature of what is happening on the island, I say to people everywhere that you bring to the Cypriots a solution that removes Turkey from its affairs in the form of military presence on the island and in the form of the guarantees that we were saddled with in 1960, and no other country has anything like that on its shoulders, weighing it down, that we were given guarantor powers, and one of them abused those guarantor rights to be there right now on the island. So you give us a solution that gets rid of those two elements, and you will see a very overwhelming yes. As long as you bring us solutions which maintain Turkish troops in the country and maintain the right of Turkey to intervene again, it will not happen. It's as simple as that. It's very black and white. There are no gray areas. Everything else that we have accepted to achieve a solution, which is the bizonal bicommunal federation, that's another thing that people forget. They believe that's something that it has become our sort of like mantra, our position. It was a compromise. That was the compromise that we accepted in '77 as a result of what Turkey created on the ground. That was a compromise. We should not forget that. So we have accepted that. We have given political equality. In any negotiation, you will see that those issues that have to do with power sharing have been solved in a very satisfactory manner for the Turkish Cypriots. We never stumbled on those issues because on those issues, we compromised. We won't compromise ever on the need for Turkish troops not to be on the island, for Turkish guarantees not to be in effect. As long as that is not brought to us, we will not see a solution. So when you have Mr. Erdogan, and when you have Mr. Tatar, who was in Washington last week and then in New York, and basically peddled again this fantasy that he has about two states. And I'm calling it a fantasy because I will tell you, in every discussion I've had with people in this town, they tell me that will never be acceptable to Washington. When you go to the European Union, you ask the European Union, how about two states in Cyprus? They say, it's not going to happen. And it's definitely not going to happen in a way that the so-called Turkish Cypriot state will become a member of the European Union. So that's a fantasy. That needs to stop, because as long as he's peddling that fantasy, we will not get to a solution. So what can the international community do? Well, I've seen the United States and I've seen Europe use the leverage they have, and they have leverage in the form of many different instruments in their disposal which they can use to change that behavior and make Turkey and make the Turkish civil leadership more constructive on the table in the negotiations. Will they use it? That's the $1 million question. I've seen firsthand since I came to this country how the immediate, decisive reaction of the United States and of other members of the Security Council have effect. Last summer, we had an effort by the Turkish military to take over part of the buffer zone. It failed because the United States, France, the UK, the European Union very quickly, very immediately reacted and said to Turkey, that's not going to happen. And they pulled back. It's a small thing compared to the overall picture of the solution, but it showed that when you have leverage, it's a question of can you use it? Do you want to use it? So as long as we are at some kind of imbalance about what we can do as an international community to change that behavior, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. So we expect that something along those lines, given the, as Katerina said, Greece and Cyprus are forces of stability in the area. It's in the interest of the United States to fortify both Greece and Cyprus even more, because if we're playing now a role that's constructive, imagine how much more we could do if we didn't have the political situation that we have.
I believe that the United States of America has always a role to play with Europe. And because we fought with the United States of America on the same side of the history, 2 world wars, and Europe, after being completely distracted after the war, it was reconstructed through the American Marshall Plan. This idea, this connection and engagement in Europe will stay there forever, I understand. And NATO is the backbone of this cooperation with Europe. As for Greece, Greece pays its dues since the beginning of its membership in NATO. And even more than needed, we pay over 3% of our GDP. I believe that we all should, all allies should do their utmost as far as strengthening the alliance is concerned. But on the other hand, what I would expect is that the United States of America have always in mind how important is their alliance with Europe, and not only to believe in that because the United States of America believed in that, but also to state so. And I'm confident that that's what they will do. Thank you.
Say that a major change was spearheaded by a wonderful piece of legislation in 2019 called the East Med Act. And the East Med Act, which sort of put together the 3+1 relationship under one banner. I want to remind people it was a bipartisan effort. Both in the Senate and in the House, it had sponsors from both parties. It was during the Trump administration. We had a Secretary of State at the time, Mike Pompeo, who was quite involved in all of this, participating in the first 3+1 high-level meeting in Jerusalem with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Was it Tsipras at the time? It was Prime Minister Tsipras, President Anastasiadis, and Mike Pompeo. And then some of the other things that we've done together were during those 4 years. So for me, it's a bipartisan effort. As Katerina said, as foreign diplomats, we don't get involved in the outcome of the election, whether it's going to be this administration or the other administration, whether who leads in the Senate and who leads in the House, whether that changes. we continue to believe that we are right now in a situation where we have support equally from both parties. We rely on all of you to continue to do your case, our case, to your representatives in the Senate and in the House for that to continue.
What I wanted just to stress is that a relationship with a foreign country, and especially when this country is the United States of America, who play a very important role in the international arena, is not a solitary walkthrough. It's a cooperation. So we've been cooperating with the United States of America for years and years now. That's what we are going to do in the future. And it's based, as we say, on values and common interests. Values and common interests will stay for the years that I can foresee, and that's what we are planning to do, and that's what we are urging you to do, and be unstoppable, you know, in relaying the Greek positions and the Greek progress to your fellow Americans, and to be very confident about our future.
I'd like to go around the room and recognize some of the people who are in here today, including many of my board members. I want to start with this main table here with our honoree this evening, Kathleen Sakalaris, who's going to be with us tonight. She's the only one I want you to applaud for right now, otherwise we'll be here all day. Our AHI Gala Chairman for the weekend and Vice Chairman Nick Chimicles you heard from. Our President of the American Hellenic Institute Board of Directors Chairman, Jim Lagos from Springfield, Ohio. You're cutting into my time. Jim Logothetis, who's also Chairman of the Leadership 100, a very distinguished group of Greek Americans help support and fund the church programs. John Calamos is a tremendous supporter of the American Hellenic Institute, has been for so many years from Chicago. Working over to my left, Elias Yarosoulis, one of our policy advisors. Zach Rotranakis, our executive director. Yola Pakchanian, who does so much work for us at the Institute in the back. All those beautiful young men and women you see there are many interns that we have and who played a critical role for this weekend. John Alahuzos on our foundation board of directors. Kostas Galanis, my eyes, I can still see pretty far. Kostas Galanis from Mexico City, who's on our foundation board. I also see a supporter in the back, Elizabeth Bartz and John James from Cleveland, Ohio. Here we have Dimitri Halakos on our board of directors of AHI from Delaware. Violeta Kapsalis-Bueller from Chicago on our board of directors. Kostas Alexakis from here in Maryland. And Aleko Harlambis from Miami on our board of directors of AHI. Tim Ananiadis, who goes between Miami and Athens, and the former general manager of the Gran Bretagna, and who's on our AHI board of directors. And Yanis Sianis, least but not least, and I hope I didn't forget anyone else, who's our board of directors. And of course, Alexandra Christopher here, who's our multitasking staff and legislative director of the organization. Ladies and gentlemen, just some last comments, if I may. Today, we'd like to thank the two ambassadors for taking the time and availing themselves of their expertise. So how about a round of applause? We also recognize Paul Peters, who came from Dallas, Texas, with a group of people and one of our most newest members and supporters. Ladies and gentlemen, these are multifaceted issues that there isn't necessarily any good single solution other than to apply logic and the rule of law. This organization was founded on that basis, application for the rule of law. That was Gene Rossides' mantra, and it's become frankly in vogue ever since really, I believe Gene, really was the innovator of that term, to be used on a daily basis. And I personally believe that it is the term for the arsenal of democracy for U.S. foreign policy in 2024 and beyond. That is what has to be the arsenal of democracy. Applying the rule of law equally and not in a selective way. Rules-based international order cannot be applied selectively, otherwise it makes a mockery of the rules-based order. You can't have an invasion of Ukraine in color as such and not call it in Cyprus. We did it with Kuwait, okay, and we forget that, and we saw the international community galvanize around that, and we see it galvanizing against Ukraine, but we've not seen it galvanize, okay, in Cyprus. Greece is a frontline state. It can defend itself, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to tell you, I have visited practically every major military facility in Greece, and I'm here to tell you, they're second to none. They can defend themselves. They have about 155 F-16s, although I heard you're going to be selling some to, or giving them to Ukraine, including some Mirages. I hope those F-35s and upgrades of F-16s come quickly. But be it as it may, they're a country that is right in the nexus of east, west, north, and south. You heard the ambassador talk about the importance in terms of the energy transiting through the country. You talk about the importance in terms of military support for the region. And within the context of the Balkans, they are a mini superpower, and they can defend themselves. Now, there are standing issues only with one country. And you have to ask your question if you're at the State Department on U.S. policy. Why does Turkey need F-35s and F-16s? Who do we know Turkey is actually ever helping in attacking? It's our Syrian Kurd friends who are helping us against ISIS. They're supporting Russia. They're supporting Hamas. They're cozying with Iran, who's threatening to launch missiles at Israel. And the only other country they would be using them against potentially is Greece, in my opinion. So we need to be questioning that as well. But nonetheless, Greece is a stalwart, strong ally who's there to defend its principles, it's there to defend the sovereignty, and defend, okay, frankly, NATO, Western, and U.S. interests. Cyprus falls in a little bit of a different category. It, unfortunately, cannot defend itself. It does not have the military wherewithal and capability to do so. It depends strictly on the goodwill, frankly, of the international community to be there and to support it within the context of the rule of law and the international rules-based international order and the UN Charter. Just because no one is shooting each other there doesn't mean there isn't a threat there. It's a real threat. And if you've been there like I've been there, you would know the threat is real when you visit the occupied area. And the United States has a major responsibility to bear for the Cyprus problem. It was the actions of one Henry Kissinger who ultimately facilitated what has transpired in Cyprus and continues to be so 50 years later. We forget that there was a two-phase invasion. July 20th was the first, but they were enclaved in the Crimea pocket. While negotiations were going on in Geneva under Secretary Callahan's chairmanship, the UK Foreign Secretary, and Arthur Hartman, Assistant Secretary of State, who was there as an observer of the United States, and who Callahan went to and said, hey, can you Americans try to stop what looks to be a potentially second invasion? And this is something we don't talk enough about. This was August 14th. And negotiations were going on. And Turkey was planning to break out of the Crimea pocket and to now move past and ultimately ended up where it is today. And Arthur Hartman said he tried to get his boss on the phone, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, but he couldn't because he was on his knees helping then President Kissinger through his tribulations because of Watergate of '74. But later on, documents have shown in White House memorandums that Henry Kissinger said, and I quote, "There's no American reason why the Americans should not have 1/3 of Cyprus."
The Turks.
I'm sorry, the Turks should not have 1/3 of Cyprus. So yes, there's a major responsibility to bear on behalf of our government, and that needs to be resolved today. And the United States was founded on this principle, and we will continue to fight, as you heard me say, and I will continue to say, until the rules-based international order applies equally in Cyprus. And frankly, it's good for U.S. interests, it's good for the European Union, it's good for NATO, and it's good for the region. So Cyprus, to be able to fulfill its full potential as a country to do all this and so much more, needs to be whole, free, and at peace, as Victoria Nuland said a number of years ago as it related to the entire European Union. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you once again. I thank our two distinguished ambassadors. Those of you who are coming tonight, we're going to have a fantastic night at our annual gala dinner here. We wish you a rest of the day of peace and friendship and fellowship, and we'll see you later on.